This program, when we started this program, we said we wanted to talk about Las Vegas in an academic way, and we wanted to celebrate those individuals that have made Las Vegas what it is today, the phenomenal city that it is today. And we are so blessed to have one of those individuals that has been a change maker, that has brought so much to the city of Las Vegas, to our state, and I've known her. I won't say for how many years, but we went to UNLV together.
Yes, we did.
And
we did.
Without any further ado, Miss Shelley Berkley.
Hello, Lonnie.
I'm
Dr. Wright. It's such a pleasure to see you. It's been way, way too long. And Dr. Peacock, my pleasure to meet you.
Attorney.
Yes.
Congresswoman,
Yes.
There's a lot of times. Listen, I'm gonna let our viewers know a title that they may not know. Student body president of UNLV.
Yes.
Yes. I tell you what, I know you were entrenched with UNLV.
Yes.
I know that you and I met in student government.
Yes.
And you became the student body president. I think you were the first lady to become the student body president.
Yes.
But that's one of many firsts for you.
Well,
one of many
we've had a few, but it's
yes.
been a very rich life, and
yes.
thanks to this city, this remarkable city. You know, when I moved here when we were 12, when I was 12. And I'll tell that story. But we're from upstate New York, and we moved here quite accidentally. And I was absolutely, that first summer, it was so hot. And I'm used to upstate New York where there's a cool breeze and it's green.
Right.
I honestly thought my parents took me to hell. I mean, I couldn't walk out of the apartment. You know, we rented an apartment for a month to see if we would like it.
Yes.
I thought it was the most horrible place on earth.
Oh.
And then I started school at John C. Fremont Junior High School.
Wow.
Never looked back. Best thing my parents ever did for me is move to Las Vegas. Well, thank you. I'll tell you how we ended up here. My dad was a waiter in upstate New York, in the Catskill Mountains, which is a resort area. Couldn't make a living. It was 1963. One night, he put my sister and I and the dog in the back seat of our car, parents in the front seat. Everything we owned was in a U-Haul hooked up to the back bumper. Drove across country, July, no air conditioning in the car. The old Route 66. We get to Hoover Dam, and there are signs, they're probably still there. Las Vegas, 30 miles. So my parents, I thought they were so old. They were 31 and 34 at the time. You know, this was a big move. We never knew if we were coming back east again. My parents wanted to see Las Vegas. My dad didn't have a job. He had a promise of a job. My mother didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. My sister and I didn't have to be in school. The dog we didn't think had any plans. So my parents decided to stop in Vegas for the night.
Thank goodness.
And we never left. And one of these days we're going to unpack the U-Haul. And I remember it was the middle of the night, late at night, hotter than heck. Mm-hmm. And we drove down the Las Vegas Strip. And through 12-year-old eyes, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I had never seen a street like that before. It was magnificent. Wow. They checked us into a motel, the Holiday Motel, which is right across the street from the Stratosphere. And then they fed us. They made sure we were okay. And they were dying to go out, dying to see Las Vegas. So, don't answer the door for anybody. Here's the television. We thought, oh, this is great. We're watching television. And remember the quarters that you put into the magic figures of the beds? Oh, it was heaven on earth. And so they left. Now, this is family lore, but it really happened. They're from a small town in upstate New York. They're driving down the Strip again, and they're at the corner of Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard. All of a sudden, they're hearing beeping and honking. They look over. It's somebody that they knew from the same town in upstate New York. And they pulled over. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? They went out for a drink. And the guy said to my father, why are you going to California? This is way to Mecca. I mean, we're the service capital of the world.
Yes,
You just to stay here. A few days later, my dad went down to the Culinary Union. They sent him out to the old Sands Hotel as a waiter. And by the time the Sands was imploded, he was the longest serving employee. He'd been there for 33 years. And he was the maitre d' of the Copa room for many, many years. So we made a life for ourselves in the middle of the desert.
And I'll tell you what, the maitre d's back in those days, they made a lot of money.
They made, he was a gambler, though. So we never saw any of the money, but he made a fortune. He lost a fortune. The perfect town to move to. A gambler.
But I'll tell you another thing about the maitre d'. They had an organization that gave a lot to the community.
Yes, they did. and somehow my dad from the Lower East Side in New York, who never graduated high school, developed a French accent. This is, I do not have a reservation. I can't find your name.
So you went to Fremont.
I went to John C. Fremont.
And what high school did you go to?
Valley. And it was when you had to choose because Valley was brand new. That was the big thing. Are you going to go to Vegas or are you going to go to Valley? I went to Valley and I was part of the first graduating class at Valley High School.
That's wonderful.
50 years later, they invited me back to give the commencement address at graduation. It was quite an experience.
I remember back in those days that if I had a choice like that, because Valley was all under roof.
Yes.
No, you didn't have to go outside to your class. It was all air conditioned, and it was the biggest, like Clark High School.
Yes, they were sister schools.
Sister schools, and that was a big thing here in Vegas.
It was
because all the other schools you had to go outside to class and go through the elements.
When I showed up at John C. Fremont for my first day, it was all those outdoor corridors and an outdoor lunchroom. I'd never seen. I'm from upstate New York, where you have a brick building, and that's where you are. It was such a shock to me. Oh my gosh! But the first time I ever had a taco was at lunch at John C. Fremont Junior High School. I go, what is this?
When you say upstate New York, are we talking
the Catskills? No, not that far up. There's about 100 miles, I guess, north of the city.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so there were a lot of big resort hotels in that area.
Of course, famous.
They used to call it the Jewish Alps.
There you go. What was that movie? There was a dancing movie.
Yeah, Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing.
I know. I can relate to that movie. I know.
Oh, get some stories there. Yeah.
So when you graduated, I want to ask you this: as a teenager, did you ever drive up and down Fremont Street?
Yeah, of course I did. My high school boyfriend went to Western High School. And we were both active in the Jewish youth groups. There was only one synagogue in town at the time, Temple Beth Shalom. So that was the big Wednesday night. That's where you were. But Friday night, you were always cruising up and down Fremont Street. And that's how I met my high school boyfriend at the Jewish youth groups, and then later cruising up and down Fremont Street. Look, that's where you went shopping.
Yes.
I mean, there was... when you went back to school, everybody was doing their back to school shopping on Fremont Street. We shopped at Woolworth. We shopped at Ronzoni's. I mean, these are old names.
Movie theaters?
There were the Guild and the El Portel and the 100, of course.
And this is the evolution we're talking about.
Yes.
Think of that from then to now.
And remember, back then, and we moved from upstate New York. Everybody mostly was Jewish, but it was a very, very inclusive, diverse community or little town. Here, it was still very restricted in the very early 60s.
Yes, it was. Matter of fact, a lot of the African American performers had to go through the back door.
Isn't that unbelievable?
And then
and thanks to Sammy Davis was a part of it, but Frank Sinatra. No way. I mean, he's one of us.
Right.
You let him in the front door with the rest of us, and that was the beginning. Look, Lena Horne. I mean, some of the greats. Lola Falana. Sammy Davis discovered her, and she was his opening act at the Sands Hotel. I mean, these were pioneers in their field. They were the greats of entertainment, and they had to come through a back door. That is outrageous.
That's in our lifetime.
This is
hundreds of years. This is not too far
Yeah,
back.
no, it is something that I experienced.
Yeah.
I lived. I know, crazy.
And I wanted to ask you this question: when you graduated from high school, did you did you go to UNLV, or did you automatically go to UNLV, or
Yeah.
did you start working, or?
No, I'm the first person in my family to go to college. Neither one of my parents graduated high school. They were Depression age kids from an immigrant family, and as soon as you hit 16 and can get out of school,
Good work.
you were expected to go to work to support the rest of the family.
Exactly.
But in our family, and I say this often, it didn't matter if you were pretty or popular. It mattered that you got good grades so you could make something of yourself. And my mother was very strict. Oh, I thought she was horrible. She made me the woman I am today. I mean, you came home, you did your homework, you didn't go out to play unless everything was done. And that was what she instilled in us. Not only that education was important, but that a pretty strong work ethic. But everybody, my father worked until he was 87 years old.
Oh, bless him.
Yep.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have a younger sister who
Yes.
went to K.O. Knutson
Oh, my
and then
God.
graduated from Valley High School 4 years after I did.
You know, the first time I met you, we were in student government at UNLV, and at that time it was NSU.
Yeah,
Nevada
that's exactly
Southern.
right. Nevada
Yeah.
Southern
So
University.
that's the first time I met Miss
Yeah,
Berkley.
well, there were 4 buildings at NSU
Yes,
at the
4
time.
buildings.
You know,
Just about.
I have to say, the dormitory that the athletes stayed in,
Mhm.
we could actually look all the way to the Boulevard Mall from the
Yeah.
first floor, man.
Yeah.
my goodness.
Can
Oh,
you
yeah.
imagine that?
There's nothing.
That was out
Nothing.
of nowhere.
Yeah, that
But-
was in the middle.
But
of
when I first met you, you have always been you. Yeah,
yeah.
over the years, I won't say how many years we've known each other, but I would say over a half a century.
Yeah, I would say so.
But you have always been the same person. And
Yes.
people gravitated towards you because we knew what you said. We had some things that we were trying to do at NSU at that
Yes.
time, UNLV,
Yes.
and you led some charges in things, and people followed you.
Yeah.
And
Very lucky.
and she was our first.
That's a great compliment.
Yeah,
It
but
is.
that's
Thank you
that's
for
been
that.
her all her life. All of her life, she's been a leader all of her life.
I think when during the 60s, when people, they had to find themselves, I never had that. I was born found. I mean, there was no,
No.
I always knew who I was. I knew my great-grandparents. I knew my grandparents, my parents, obviously. So I know where I come from. I
Yes.
know who I am. So I didn't have to reinvent myself. And you know as well as I
Yes.
do, being an adult in the community in which you were raised, you can't reinvent yourself. This is you.
Yes.
I mean, people know me
They
from
know
the
you.
time I was 12. Am I going to change now? I don't think so. And so I feel very comfortable in my own skin.
What was your first job in the hospitality industry?
Oh, my goodness.
Your
Well,
very first job.
okay. I broke it. Well, that's not true. I ran Keno at the old Desert Inn, and in those days it was a pink ruffly thing with white go-go boots, because that was when my boots were made for walking,
Right,
Nancy
right.
Sinatra.
Nancy Sinatra.
So that was the rage. So you're in these crappy but plastic white boots that your
Look.
feet were killing you by the end of the night, and this little pink ruffly thing. It was like a bubblegum pink, and that was the uniform. And it was fun. I love the casino business. I love gaming, and I love being in the hotels. Then when they let me run Keno, it was before I turned 21,
Mhm.
because my dad knew a lot of people on the strip by that time. When I turned 21, I broke in cocktails at the Hacienda.
Yay.
And
He was general manager.
it was a cute little place.
Yes, it is.
And I have a great Pat Cooper story. Do you know the comedian Pat
Cooper.
Cooper?
Yeah.
I had this horrible shift. It was 7 a.m. to 3. There's not much drinking going on between 7 a.m. and 3. So my shift ended at 3 o'clock. It was around 1:30, 2 o'clock. Hadn't made a dime. hadn't made a dime. I think my area was the lounge, the coffee shop,
Oh my
and
God,
the
Lord.
Keno parlor.
Yeah.
So it not people were drinking Coke at that time.
Exactly.
And so I was telling Pat Cooper was playing Keno. And we started talking. I told him I was a student at UNLV and I worked for the summers in order to make enough money to go to school, and because my dad was still a waiter at that time. And I told him, and I wasn't trying to get a tip from him. I wasn't hustling. I was just in despair. I said, look, I've got a budget. I have to make $20 in order to, enough $20 a day so that I'll have enough money to go to school. And we kept talking, and I kept bringing him whatever he wanted. At the end of when I was leaving, because you go over and say we're changing shifts, so he took out a $20 bill and he put it on my tray.
Wow.
And he said, "You stay in school, sweetheart."
Bless Pat
I
Cooper.
know it.
Jeez.
I have
That's
let me make a postscript to that. 100 years later, he and I are both being honored by the B'nai B'rith. And so we're at a big dinner, and I mentioned when I got up, and Michael Callahan was also being honored that night. So I got up and I told the story what Pat Cooper did for me 20 years ago, maybe longer, that he had put a $20 bill. He gets up to get his award, cracked everyone up. He said, and Shelley, he said, that wasn't, he said, I wasn't giving you a tip, that was a loan. Give it back.
Give it back.
That's
And
funny.
he broke up the whole room.
Yes.
But that was that's my Pat Cooper story.
That's a great Pat Cooper
And
story.
so I broke into the hacienda, and boy, I did cocktails. I did it at the old Holiday Casino Center Strip, which is Harrah's now. The Aladdin, you name it. At the Golden Steer, I cocktailed at the Golden Steer. And I made enough money during the summers to pay my way
To go to school?
through
Go
law
to
school.
UNLV.
Yeah.
And what was your major?
In college, I was a double major, history and political science. Not a big surprise,
Yes.
but that's what I loved from the earliest of ages.
Yes.
When was the first time you started serving the citizens of our city and in this state? And if you can give us a background of your political career.
Absolutely. Well, you already mentioned I was student body president
Right.
of UNLV. Went away to law school. No, first I did an internship. You probably remember this, although you were in a different school. In the political science department, they had a program. Every year, a student was selected from UNLV, when it became UNLV, to go to Washington, D.C. and intern for one of our senators. In 1973, I was the student that interned for Senator Howard Cannon. So I did my 6 months, came home, and then went to law school for 3
You were
years.
in Washington, D.C.
I was in D.C. for a semester during the Watergate hearings,
Wow.
which is a very exciting place to be at the
Absolutely.
time. And I came home, cocktailed that summer, and left for law school at the University of San Diego. I did my 3 years, came back. I always knew I was going to run for office. I'm an attorney by profession, and I did practice, but the reality is, in those days, I went to law school in order to give myself some credibility. Because which in those days there were not many women running for office,
No.
and very few women attorneys. So when I came back from law school, I founded the Southern Nevada Association of Women Attorneys. And now it's a huge, there were 12 of us in my kitchen. And we incorporated this association. Now there are hundreds of lady attorneys, and they all, it's the thing to do to belong to the Southern Nevada Association of Women Attorneys. But back then, there were a dozen of us.
Yeah.
You know?
In the kitchen, guys.
Yeah, it was
Now
just
you
great.
you ran for a state position.
I ran and won for the Nevada State Assembly in 1982. I had my son Max, in the end of May, and I won that election in November. And Max and I went back, not all the time. Sometimes he stayed home because I had all the grandparents here. So I was able to leave him in very
So you were
good
a young
hands.
mom.
I was a young mom schlepping my 8-month-old back and forth to Carson City when that wasn't done very often in those days. And I have a great picture of me with Max on the floor of the assembly, and I'm giving him a bottle. I love that
Is
picture.
he an attorney now?
He works for the public defender's office. Yes, he's just a great kid.
Yeah.
And my son Sam, who you may remember, works for Southern Wine and Spirits.
Yes.
And so
Larry Ruvo.
Yes, and God bless Larry Ruvo.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
God
A lot of reasons. The Cleveland Center, yes.
What he has done for this community is remarkable.
You know, Larry Ruvo, speaking of Larry Ruvo, he and Sig Rogich helped me open up my hand-rolled cigar company in the airport. These guys are just, let's talk about this city, about the camaraderie of this city. Isn't, I've never seen anything like it, and we're the #1 hospitality venue the world has ever known. Yeah. But we're still a small town.
Yes.
We're still
Lonnie,
a small
town. Yes, you hit the nail on the head. You know, and a lot of times when I was younger, I just took it for granted. You know that the governor of the state Michael Callahan took an interest in me. That like Grant Sawyer, all of these people. I had no connection. My family was the least political people on the planet. Mm-hmm. I mean, my dad was working. My mother belonged to all the the Jewish events and the women's events, but certainly we the first time we bought a home was when we were in Las Vegas. We at the old party cinder block homes near Valley High School. It was close enough for me to walk to school, and that. But cinder block, schminder block cost $33,000. I'll never forget it. But it made all the difference in our lives. We owned something. We belonged in Las Vegas. Here we were. Here was our home. And that's where we grew up. And I didn't realize how lucky we were at the time. But we really were. And I agree with you. People that, why would they even pay attention to us? I mean, my family were not donors to their campaigns, but they did. They took an interest. They reached down and pulled us up. And the result of that is we're the next generation. And that group of men and women that really, and we've had a few of them on our show, Lieutenant Governor Hunt. Yeah.
But those individuals, I think there was some type of pride about Las Vegas, and pride in UNLV. Me being a former athlete, I mean, I got so much help. All you had to do was ask for it. All you had to do was ask for it, and it was so much, pride in this city.
Yeah.
And if you were trying to do something, people would really give you their shirt off their back.
I agree with you 100%. And with Larry Ruvo, now, I mean, they pretty well. I mean, they supply the entire industry with their beverages. I mean, the wine, the spirits. For some reason, Larry took a liking to Sam when he was in college, and he kept an eye on him. And when Sam graduated, first he went to work at Caesars, and then he went over to the Mirage, and he was the manager of the steakhouse at the Mirage. And one night, Larry walked in, and when Larry walks into a hotel, it's like God has arrived,
That's exactly right.
And he walked over he found Sam, and he said to him, he said, Sam, he goes, how many hours a day do you work? Well, you know the hospitality industry, 12, 14 hours a day.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm the manager.
Yeah.
Well, do you ever get weekends off? Are you kidding?
No.
You ever get holidays off? No. And Larry said to him, now, Sam was all at 26 at the time, so how bad could this be? He said, aren't you sick of that yet? He said, I know your mother worked like a dog. I worked like a dog. When are you going to come over to my shop? And Sam looked at him, did I miss a conversation or something? And Larry said, the head of HR is going to call you tomorrow. You come down and see us. And that was 10 years ago.
And that's how it used to happen. We used to call it juice.
Yes, yes. I
He's-
never look. I was some
Yes.
schleppy kid in town. I don't think I ever paid for food when I went on the strip.
Yeah.
In those days, they all take care of her, take care
Yeah.
of her. And,
Oh,
oh
man,
my
what a
God!
city.
I thought that you automatically say comp and they take care of you. Imagine when I had to start paying for food.
Those were the good
And,
days.
and then thinking about growing up in this great city, how it was really still a small city,
Yeah, it was
and
indeed.
and people cared about people. They really, yes, we had the Jim Crow thing at once, but once we got past
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
it you know, I was one of the first African American dealers. I'm you know,
And that's saying something.
that's
It really
no,
is.
but you know, there were people before me like Reverend Rogers.
Oh,
I think he was actually the first black dealer.
wow.
We have to research
Wow.
that. I need to
Yes.
call Reverend Rogers, but I know he was one of the first. And anytime you're one of the first, I said you have done a lot of firsts.
So have you.
You had your baby. You were a young mom. You're one of the first.
Yeah, I don't think I slept that year. Between a newborn baby and running for office for the first time. But those were the days where you would walk precincts. I walked my precincts twice. I got in great shape after the baby was born.
That would get
Just
you,
walking. I walked my way to victory in that election. Just
That's
amazing.
And when we talk about this concept called juice, when people would actually get you, like he did your son Larry Ruvo, and like he and Sig did with me,
Mhm.
you give it 110%.
Oh my God!
You just can't
yes.
let people down
No.
that have saw something in you and said,
I agree. 100%.
let's help this this young man.
It was very, very important to
in
me
this
to do
town,
well.
it's still like that in our generation, but it's kind of fading away.
Well, you just have to pay it forward.
Yes.
And, it's important to me to do exactly that. Look, first now I'll tell this, which isn't really hospitality, but, I got very politically active very young. And in 1968, I was a high school senior at Valley High School, and two young guys were running for the Nevada State Assembly. I was walking precincts for them. Turned out to be Harry Reid and Richard
Oh,
Bryan.
wow.
And we were friends forever. When I ran for Congress, both of them 30
Wow.
years later walked precincts for me. Can you imagine opening
No.
your door and seeing two senators standing there?
No kidding.
Hi, we're campaigning for Shelley Berkley. That's the measure of them. But I got a phone call. I was elected to at one of the state convention, Democratic convention, of
Mhm.
course, to be a delegate to the 1972 National Convention in Miami. Now, I didn't have two nickels to rub together, but it didn't even occur to me. I ran, I won, I'm going to Miami. How? Hadn't thought about that yet. I get a call out of the blue from Michael Callahan. He was governor at the time. He said, it never identified himself. He goes, how are you going to pay to go to Miami? And I don't know. I never thought of it. He said, I want you to go down to Billy Weinberger at Caesars.
Caesar's
And
Palace.
he's
Yes.
waiting for you. You go. This is Saturday. He said, you go down now. Okay, I get dressed. I go to Caesar's Palace, go up the little elevator. I don't know if those offices are still there anymore. But it was near Cleopatra's Barge.
Yes.
That didn't exist at the time.
Right.
So I go. I go up the elevator, and I'm in his office, and I'm sitting in a chair. He's got this desk the size of Cleveland, and
Yes.
and after we talked for a few minutes, he takes out this huge ledger where the old checks with the duplicates, and there's 6 of them.
Yeah.
It was like woo, and he wrote me a $500 check. It paid my transportation, my room, and my food, and I had extra money when I got home. But that 500 might as well have been 5 million for me.
Yes.
That's how I ended up going to the national convention. I tell you this because, yeah, how do you ever pay, a president of Caesar's Palace back?
Back.
Years later, when I was in Congress, there was a young man, who I'm not going to mention his name, but he was elected delegate to the national convention. This is when John Kerry was the nominee. And I thought to myself, how is this kid going to go? I mean, I knew his family didn't have much money. And so I called him. I paid that
Pay
forward.
forward.
And I told him when he said, how can I ever repay you? Pay it forward.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
And,
It's been a lot of paying forward in this town.
oh, yeah.
A lot of paying
It's
forward.
just a great. It was. There was nothing here when there were 80,000 people in the whole Las Vegas Valley when we got here. We lived in the Boulevard Park apartments before there was a boulevard across the street, and so we lived on Desert Inn in Maryland.
I know exactly.
And we made a life for ourselves in the desert. And I am so eternally grateful for my parents for leaving upstate New York and coming to the middle of nowhere.
It's a destiny or something.
It was, oh my, I do
Yeah,
believe that.
yes.
And what are the odds of seeing somebody that they knew from upstate New York in the next lane on Las Vegas Boulevard? It was meant to be. It happened. And then again, everything that's why I've been such a supporter of it. I love the gaming industry. I was in it for years. I know it. But I also support labor. Why? My dad was culinary. On a waiter's salary, he made enough money to put a roof over our head, food on the table, clothes on our back.
Health benefits.
Yep, 2 daughters through college, me through law school. Not bad on a waiter's salary.
Amen.
Beautiful.
That's why I think my job is to make sure people coming up behind me have the same opportunities that I had. I mean, you can't make everybody successful, but at least they should have the opportunity to have a good life and be able to take care of their families. And most people don't ask for more than that. My dad never resented the bosses. The bosses were nice to him. Sinatra, whenever, and again, he was a waiter at the time, he moved a table for Sinatra, Sinatra toked him. He brought food for Sinatra, Sinatra toked him. I mean, he was great.
Yeah,
I mean, they all were. And, there was a lot of cash around. And cash was going from this pocket to this pocket to another pocket. And that's what made this world go
I
around.
want to fast forward to a picture.
Okay.
Remember that picture?
I do indeed.
That picture was when Peter Guzman and I and some of our staff. To fast forward with our lives and how from me knowing you as the student body president, and now I'm here in her office in Capitol here.
Cool.
I'm saying, man, that was really cool.
I have to, and I remember that meeting. I remember it like it was yesterday. But when you get elected, and you go to DC as a freshman, and so you're in a freshman office, and you're picking the drapes and the floor and the this and the that. And I remember walking into my little freshman office and thinking, how did I manage to fool all those people back home that they actually think I could do this
It was so
job?
good.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I was so proud of you
I know.
when and my wife just loves you.
And she's
She
a
just-
beautiful woman.
yeah,
I love your wife.
She loves Las Vegas as well.
Yeah.
And all of our kids were born here. But I wanna say that time meeting with all of the people on both sides of the aisle, we felt at home in your office.
I know.
It was like
Everybody says that. As a matter of fact, a lot of people coming from Vegas, and when I was a citizen activist, when I went back to DC, and I caught the bug very early. The idea you could easily see these people here at home. There was something very special about meeting with your member of Congress, who you could have known for 20 years, but coming to their office in DC, sitting down and having a conversation. So when I was elected, it was very important to me to make sure that I met with people from back home.
Oh,
And
please,
so
yes.
loved it.
You set up a tour for us.
Oh, there was
we didn't-
nothing we wouldn't
I
have
wanted
done.
to ask you. You volunteered to.
Yeah,
Hey,
'cause it's so
have you guys
special.
seen the? You know,
Yeah.
I never had gone through that tunnel.
Exciting, isn't it?
It's exciting.
You just look around like, oh my God, this is our government.
Washington is.
And
is
that's
like-
Shelley.
yes.
That's Shelley sitting there. Yeah, I had a great
I couldn't
office.
call you Shelley at that time.
Well,
I had to call
you could have.
Right, I could have, but I wanted to stay formal and respectful.
Well, thank you.
Wherever we went, you know, it was just great.
It and that's what broke my heart so much. I don't want to talk politics, but January 6th, I mean, desecrating this building that I absolutely loved. It was, and I was there for 7 terms. I never once got complacent or bored. You walk around that building and it always took my breath away. And for the first 9 years that I was in DC, I didn't have a car. I always lived on Capitol Hill, and you walk wherever you're going. And a lot of times this is not a 9 to 5 job. So, you're walking home late at night, and I would turn around and look at the Capitol, the dome lit up, and
Tears.
tears.
I mean,
And it never, in all the years I was there, it never changed one bit. From the first day I got there to the last day, it just took my breath
we gotta
away.
get that
And
feeling
that's
back.
saying
We gotta get that
something.
feeling back.
I hope
Dr.
so.
Peacock, that's saying something coming from Las Vegas.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because nothing.
Just
I
like
mean,
that.
you have
just
to come
like
to
the
Vegas
Strip.
to get your breath taken.
Yeah,
away.
Yes.
just like the Las Vegas
It
Strip.
does,
I
it
could,
does.
Speaking of the Las Vegas Strip,
Yeah,
but-
been casinos most of my life. It was
but let's talk about the Can-Do City.
Oh,
Look how we've come back.
Yes.
Look how
Oh,
we've come back.
Lonnie, things are hotter than ever. I
Yes,
mean, it
it
is
is.
amazing.
Look at the occupancy rate. You
Well,
keep up with all
the
of that.
records are going up. MGM just announced, another quarter of a very positive return.
Yeah, I had lunch with Bill Hornbuckle about a month ago, maybe longer, and he said, I mean, I think it's acknowledged town's doing great, but they need more employees. They need people in the casinos working.
This is what we do. We educate a bank of talented middle managers in our program, and we've been a part. The CSN has been a part of helping the industry, and we're working on some things right now to really utilize the knowledge that we have from that threat of coronavirus, and now we want to be a part of making it even better. Matter of fact, I'm writing a chapter in my textbook on 2 chapters on coronavirus and how it changed the way that we are managing and
Oh, interesting.
and interfacing with the customer. And secondly, the other was October 1.
Horrible.
How it changed security and surveillance in the hospitality
And who
business.
would have ever dreamed that could have happened?
Yeah.
It's the last thing I would have ever
Yeah.
thought of in Las Vegas. But it was devastating. There's no doubt.
One
about it.
thing about people like yourself and all of the people that we've interviewed, we love this city and we never give up on this city.
No.
This city just it's just gonna come back.
Yeah,
It's
without
just
a
gonna
question.
come back.
Without it. Look, and from, I'm a great believer in, changing lemons into lemonade.
Yes.
After October 1, I started working with Metro, Touro University, which of course is the medical school that I'm running for the last
Yeah.
9.5 years. We are training every Metro officer, all 4,000 of them, for disaster medical
Wow.
training. So, because you cannot have medical personnel in an active shooting situation. So, we are training all of the Metro officers. If God forbid a million times something happens like that, that they are equipped to save lives. If they can do it safely, since there's not going to be medical personnel on the scene, if they can do a tourniquet, if they can do something that can save a life, they're all trained by Toro.
What else does Turo do besides? I mean, nurses and?
Oh, well, we have our 4-year medical school, and I'm very proud to say that we are the largest medical school, 180 students. We graduated 180 this past year, yesterday.
Fantastic.
All 180 matched to a residency program, and 50 of our 180 are staying in Nevada. Exactly what we need.
This is what you do. You
Yes,
do things.
I
You
love
do
that.
things and get them done.
It's
Yes.
the best. I had 4,200 applications for 180 slots in the med school. If you get accepted at Turo, you're going to graduate because you are one smart person.
Yes.
And then we our physician assistant program had 2,400 applications for 80 slots. Physical therapy doctorate, occupational therapy doctorate. The theme here is we are educating everything that the state of Nevada needs right now in healthcare. So it's and nursing, but not entry level nursing. You have to be a practicing nurse that wants an advanced degree, and that's where you come to Toro. So
and
it's all
you
great.
know, and it's so necessary because at one time we were the largest generation, the baby boomers. Now the millennials, they surpassed us. But now, at one time, all of us used to go to a lot of weddings. Now, unfortunately, we go to a lot of funerals.
Yes,
So
you are
now
so
we
right.
need health care. We need
Yes,
health care
exactly
for baby boomers.
For us, yes.
For baby boomers.
You know, this is a interesting thing you should mention. And I had a history teacher at UNLV. I don't know whether you ever had him. His name was Gary Roberts, and he was my favorite teacher at UNLV. So I graduated. I think that he only had a bachelor's degree, so they forced him to leave at that time because they were trying to upgrade the standards. Although a better teacher,
And now
you're
we're
never
a tier
gonna
one
find.
university. Not to cut you off. Now UNLV is a tier one university.
Yes, indeed.
But
That
unfortunately,
makes me
that's
very
part of
proud.
the reason you let
Yeah.
good teachers go.
A wonderful classroom teacher. Anyway,
I
about
cut you off.
5
I'm
years.
sorry.
No, not at all. For about right before COVID, Larry and I go up to the Shakespeare Festival in Cedar City every year.
Yes.
Over July 4th weekend, that's where we go. And so I'm at our bed and breakfast where we always go to the same bed and breakfast. And I'm looking across a couple of tables and I'm thinking, God, that guy looks so familiar. Who could it be? And I looked at my husband. I said, I got to go introduce myself because I'm sure I know him. I went over. I said, excuse me. I said, my name is Shelley Berkley. He goes, I know, Shelley. I'm Gary Roberts. I was your history teacher at UNLV. Let me fast forward. We went out to dinner that night. It was a great reunion. He's coming to town. Hasn't lived in Las Vegas for decades. He's coming to town next week, and he gave me a list of students and teachers that he had worked with to see if we could all get together.
Oh,
So
fun,
that's
yes.
it's fun, but so many of the people on his list have passed away,
Yes.
and it was so shattering to me. But I could imagine the teachers, but a number of his students that were special that he asked me to get in touch with, they're not here anymore.
Oh,
And so that just punctuates what you're saying. It's a whole different world, and we have such a tremendous shortage of healthcare professionals in this state. We need to grow our own.
Yes, yes.
What do you think about our little hometown? You had 80,000 people here, and I was born out at Nellis in 1952, so I was even it was even a smaller town. But what did you think about all the sports that's coming to Vegas?
Oh my God.
God.
Lonnie, if you would have told me when we were kids that
No.
ice hockey would have been the hottest game in town, are you out of
You're
your
in the
mind?
desert?
Right, yeah, right, that'll happen. I love the Golden Knights. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm not a big athletic person, but I sure love that. And then I wasn't really keen on the Raiders. Oh my God! I hope they start winning some games. It's very important. But if they
It will happen.
don't,
It's
it's still
No,
a
no.
hoot.
Now I'm going to tell you why it's so important, and all of the sports teams that are listening. And we did get a championship with our aces.
Yes, we
Right,
did.
we did. With
Leave it to the ladies.
Yes, leave it to the ladies.
Good.
But this town, what they have to understand, just like the Running Rebels, there are so many choices you can make to go out.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes you don't want to go and see a team losing now.
Right.
So you'll go to a show, you'll go to Cirque, you'll go.
It just adds another amenity to our experience.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, with the Raiders, my husband suggested, we live up in Summerlin, and my husband suggested that we take the bus from Red Rock Casino to the.
That's a good idea.
But I oh God, I can take a bus. Well, I did. I agree. I said, okay, we'll do this. Well, first of all, we parked at the Red Rock Casino. Bus was waiting for us. Got on the bus. Knew half the people there. 15 minutes later, they dropped us off at the gate. We go in, have a ball at the Allegiant Stadium. Come back out. The bus is waiting for us. 15 minutes later, we're back at Red Rock. I thought, why would anybody bring their car?
You told that story. That's what I'm
well, the next time we go,
to do it.
that's what we gotta do.
It's so great, and you'd be surprised about who's on the bus. We had a great time. Then I know we're going to get the A's. That's going to be exciting, and we're going to get an NBA team in the next few years. I think Las Vegas over the next decade is going to explode in a very positive way. And now it's important to, what they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. It's very important that this next phase of Las Vegas, which I think is going to be fantastic, everybody in the community benefits.
We're going to need progressive leadership.
Yes, indeed.
And
experience.
By the way,
progressive, yes.
Now, you are, what is on the horizon for you as far as your political career?
Well, when one thinks it's over, look, I put in 30 years in public service and loved every minute of it. And then the last 9.5 years, I've been in Toro running a medical school.
Always in leadership.
I'm comfortable in that role, yes.
Always have been.
And now I've decided I always wanted to be mayor of Las Vegas. And now, of course, with Carolyn retiring, I decided that would be a wonderful opportunity for me to continue my service.
You would be perfect for that. And
well,
it is
I'm a good cheerleader,
yes.
but also I'm a good administrator, I've learned.
Absolutely.
And so I think I could run the city with collaboratively, bring a lot of voices to City Hall, because people feel very, if they're not involved in the decision-making process, they feel cut out. And you don't want anybody to feel cut out. But I've got a gaming background, and let's face it, gaming is still the economic engine of this community. No gaming, but I also understand, I've been on the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance board for the last 10 years. We've got to diversify the economy. Much as I love gaming, it's time to bring in other sectors of the economy, and I've been doing that for 10 years as well. So I think that I've got the background that I could really continue to serve the people of, and my definition of public service, you serve the public. I mean, there's unfortunately too many people in public service that think the public's supposed to serve them. No, that's not it. And if you think so, you're going to be badly burned and disappointed.
But from knowing you and being a Las Vegan, for 70 years, you are an optimum fit for this time.
Thank you.
To be mayor of this town, because of what I know about you and how I've seen your actions on Capitol Hill, at UNLV,
border regions.
Oh, come on!
Running the medical center. I mean, this is a perfect.
We need leadership.
I'll tell you something that John Ralston said, and I wouldn't say it if it was confidential, but he said it at Hispanics in Politics. And John, as you know, doesn't say too many nice things about too many people. He actually said at that breakfast meeting that Fernando Romero puts together, he said, she was born to be mayor of Las Vegas. And while I don't know whether I was born to be, but the ultimate compliment from John Ralston.
I agree with John Ralston. And he doesn't give up a lot of
not too
compliments
many.
like that. John is
pretty cynical guy.
He tells people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Exactly. So no, I've known him forever. My gosh.
He's a great journalist.
Yeah. Yes, he is.
I am so happy that you are going to run for mayor.
Thank you.
anything that we can do, we're a part of. I've known you, so I know
Yeah.
you and your heart.
Well,
Your
I
heart for
thank you for
people.
that. We do go way, way back,
Way
Lonnie,
back.
and it's a privilege for me to know you.
Yes.
It really is,
Yes.
and equally lovely
Listen,
to have met you.
We know your resume. I know the resume, and that's important. That skill set,
Thank you.
taking to a city that needs that right now. You know, Miss Goodman did fantastic.
Look,
What she
25
did-
years of service.
Yes, and the Goodman
Wow.
family
Yeah,
is
I agree.
incredible, and you're
You know
We-
what Oscar told me?
Yeah.
I found this, I never thought about it, but then I realized, yes, he's right. He said now they're like 23 and a half years, but by the time they're done, they will have done 25 years of public service.
That's
In
wonderful.
25 years, they never took a vacation.
Oh no.
They
I
did,
believe it.
stolen long weekends in Coronado. He's got a place in Coronado. But as far as going on vacation,
Mm-hmm.
not in 25
Never
years.
happened.
They always
They're
stuck
service
close.
oriented.
Yes,
That's
that's the
they
responsibility.
love this town.
Yeah, you
They
take
love
on
this town.
take on a job, you do the job. You don't want the job, don't take on the
Don't
job.
do the
You
job.
know, I'm
Yeah,
okay
it's
with that.
wonderful.
Don't do it.
She was there with Meadows, the school that she
and
founded,
did a great job.
and took that same work ethic
Yeah.
for the city. No.
Yes, yeah, lovely woman, lovely woman.
You know, the one other thing. What about the law school, Mr. Boyd's Law School?
Yes.
Were you involved in that?
Oh, you're not going to believe this.
I got
The
you.
answer is yes. When I was student body president of UNLV, I was on a committee to investigate bringing a law school, like seeing if it was feasible to bring a law school to UNLV. Because, where should the law school be located? Should it be up at UNR, down here? Anyway, and then I graduated. I was on the committee, went to the meetings, graduated. I came back and was appointed by Governor Miller to the Board of Regents. It was an opening due to a death. And so I was appointed to be on the Board of Regents. They put me on the same committee. In 20 years, nothing had been done. And so I kind of made a personal promise to myself that I would not leave the Board of Regents until we had a a law school.
Mhm.
And so the med school came later, although we were talking about that
Yes.
back then too.
Think of that.
So
You
my-
had your hands in a lot of it.
my fellow board members gave me the honor of making the motion to bring the law school to UNLV. And the rest is history. And, Jim Rogers and,
God rest his soul.
and Mr. Boyd,
Yes.
I mean, they gave the money to create that incredible school. And let me go 20 years later, my son Max graduated from that
Isn't that
school.
amazing?
So had my daughter.
Oh, look at that.
No, she graduated too.
All right,
All
thank you
righty.
so much.